Hello and welcome back. So today we're taking a look at the Draco. Now, before I really start talking about it, I do want to say a couple quick things. One, I realize I don't have any retrofits on it. And I have this for a very important reason. There's a video coming up that I'm going to be discussing all of the retrofits in the game in detail, the pros and cons. I'm just waiting to compile a little bit more data. And also I'm doing this without retrofits simply because this vehicle, as far as I look at it, has several different ways to set it up, but I'll get into that later. I just wanted to address that at first. So, what is the Draco and how do I get it? Well, the Draco is a Tier 9 armored fighting vehicle. It's basically a striker with a barn on top of it, is kind of what we call it. Now, you get it from the Wolfie dealership. It's all the way down here with the Draco. Now, you don't have to get it specifically from the M1128. You can get it from pretty much unlocking any Tier 8 with the Tier 9 token that you get from completing the Tier 8. But the way I would recommend, I know it sounds weird, but I recommend getting the Draco, no matter which line you're kind of going down, because here's the logic, guys. The Sphinx is really good at Tier 10, don't get me wrong. But from the way that I've looked at it, I wanted to get like the Tier 10 MBT, so I went from the A1 to the Draco to have something different at Tier 9, because in my opinion, there's no point in having a Tier 9 MBT, unless you're running with other people, because all the Tier 10 MBTs are always better, whereas the Sphinx is not necessarily better than the Draco. It's really good, but from what I've played with it, yes, I played it a lot on the Global Operations test. The Sphinx is awesome. It is slightly better than the Draco, but it's a little different, so that's kind of my justification for how I went about it. But I do recommend, no matter what, getting the Draco if you like the kind of playstyle that we're about to talk about. Now, to give you an idea, it actually plays a lot, it very much is akin to the Bagel Panzer, or the Big Light Panzer, at Tier 5. Now, let's get into the actual stats so you guys understand what I'm talking about here. This is a 12-shot autoloader. Now, for anybody that comes from World of Tanks, this is the overpowered big brother, well, very, very big brother, of kind of the Walker Bulldog. So, you got a 76mm gun here. And you really only have two ammo types that really matter once you get fully upgraded. Armor-piercing fin stabilized, discarding Sabo, and high-explosive armor piercing. Now, what's interesting about this is if you look at the damage and the penetration, it only has 331 pen, and you're looking at it thinking, wow, that's a Tier 9. That's not a lot. Well, you're kind of right. It's not great. But for an armored fighting vehicle, it's actually pretty decent when you compare it to something like the Terminator, which only has 201. But yet again, the Terminator's gun is a little 30mm. So of course, this is going to have superior penetration. But where this really stands out is the simple fact that you can do 348 damage per shot. That's with the top AP, which is actually the only AP you get. And that's without including retrofits. So if you do the math, 12 shots in the mag at 348 damage, yeah, you're close to 4,000 damage in the mag. And this is, mind you guys, consider this is without even going for critical hits, engine shots, and stuff like that, which I'll be showing you in the video. So, APFSDS, I run about half of it. And that I use mostly for the sides of MBTs, tanks that I can't really get any critical shots on. But this right here is the key to how to play the Draco. The high explosive, armor piercing. Now, what's important is if you look down right in this area where it says damage penetrating, 415 to 507. Now, can you get that all the time? No. But if you know where to shoot at certain tanks, I can roll 400 to 500 damage every single time. And that brings up the damage in the mag to the maximum of 6,000 damage in the mag. Which, when it only takes 14 seconds to reload it, you can decimate opponents. But it's all with the caveat of if you can penetrate. If you don't, you do like 10 damage, 20 damage, maybe 30 damage. It works really well for the fronts of tanks, the really lightly armored tanks, any AFVs, particularly the Thunderbolts. But any really MBT, and they're going to kind of shrug that off. And that's where this thing kind of falls flat, because those are your two options. It's not like the equivalent to your Terminator, where it has these ridiculous ATGMs. The Draco is all about the gun. And you can kind of see that simply because the gun depression, 6 degrees down, 6 degrees up, and it gets a little bit better on the sides, if I remember correctly. But that's kind of about it. Besides that, it's very mobile, 104 kilometers an hour. It's actually surprisingly nippy. Now, I will say, you don't have an engine upgrade, which is kind of nice, because when you first get it, it's as good as it gets. And guys, I do realize I don't have the second gun, because it whatever. That's kind of a moot point. It only brings up the damage a little bit, the penetration a little bit. I didn't justify the cost. Now, for someone that has more money than I do, sure. That extra 18 damage or 17 millimeters of penetration, why not? But it's kind of a lot of money for a modest increase. If it did something to the accuracy of 0.13, I would do it. If it did something to the reload or aim time, sure, but it doesn't. So, if you have the money laying around, sure, but I felt like it was such a modest increase, I didn't really go for it. And APS, since I only run this thing in PvE, no point in getting it. Smoke grenades, you can justify getting it. I usually don't need it, as you guys will see with my playstyle. The improved autoloader, yet again, you can buy it if you want. I'm usually not firing on the move. Or really, that's 5% in general. So, meh. I haven't really needed it yet. I'm kind of one of those people, if I'm happy with the performance of a tank, I usually kind of leave it. But I will say, if you can increase it by 5%, you know, they can get around to the 12.5%, 12.5 second reload-ish. But anyways, accuracy spread of 0.08. That's pretty good for tier 9. That's definitely within acceptable parameters, especially when I have a fully maxed out crew, and I have peak accuracy and aim time improved. Now, here's where some people are going to disagree with me. And I'm okay with this controversy. I kind of like discussing this. I like to use Iona Senna. Now, this is after, you know, well over 100 battles, and I've been switching around crew members. I know everyone's going to say, you got to run Sabrina. And I realize that. The camo factor is nice, aim speed is nice, vision range is good. Because this thing, stock, I believe, is 425? Should be? Yes. Stock, this one's 425. And she will up it, boink, if you run her, to 465. But that's, yet again, I find that since I'm usually running this thing as a long-range kind of tank, I usually don't worry about spotting. I usually just worry about using the gun. But that's just me. Now, I know this tank, I've been on the forums enough to understand, people have a lot of different opinions about how to play it, how to run it, how to set it up. Here is from before I do the video, here's from what I've been able to work out is probably the best thing you can do. Is you're not going to really... The reload time between the shots is not going to change that much. The reload time for the mag isn't really the big deal. I was kind of looking at it from the perspective of going at it for damage and for aim time. So I know you can throw gyroscopic on it. I know you can throw magnetic actuator on it for the aim time. But even the aim time doesn't seem to be the biggest deal. So I've seen a lot of people throw this around, but I would personally go for as much damage as you can for each shot. So really anything that throws damage on, I would throw it on. And that's just me. And for the last technology slot, now this is something that's been kind of controversial. I personally love to throw intercom on everything. You can make an argument for augmented optics. But enhanced sight, no. Security control, no. Braided Kevlar, maybe. But yet again, I don't take hits much in this thing, or at least not usually. The replay I'm going to show you, it's a little bit different. But you don't really lose crew or components as often as it's really needed. That's kind of a main battle tank thing. So generally it's not the biggest deal. And I know I'm kind of spoiling not going over the retrofits in detail on this, because there's several ways you can set it up, depending on your playstyle. Like, if you want just reload, you just go advanced thermal sleeve, you go augmented breech lock, and then you go, where is it? Gyroscopic. You just run those three, then there you go, you got an insane reload time. But as far as I'm aware, and I've been able to test out, it doesn't change the shot time between shells. So, because that's around a second or so, a second and a half, which is slightly better than the aim time. But anyways, besides that, for consumables, the standard kind of run, spare parts, medical kit, auto fire, always field rebuild. Remember guys, if you're tier 5 and above, as soon as you can start using the field rebuild, I recommend it every single time. And really, besides that, there's nothing really to talk about. There's no armor, obviously. The thing has absolutely crap armor. I mean, if you throw a log hard enough, it'll go right through it. Well, not really, but you get the point. And that's really it. There's nothing really much else to it. I mean, you got the wheels, so you can't really traverse on tracks. The camouflage is decent on it. Nothing great, but it's good enough. But that's not really what it's about. Now we're getting to the end of talking about the tank in general. It's very simple. All you do is put the gun to use. And that's really it. You use your mobility to flank opponents, get around beside them, and stay at range. You have good enough accuracy, and your reload is quick enough with the magazine that it's okay for you to put a couple shots at an enemy, kill it, and say, you know what, there's a more higher priority target here, I'll reload and take him out. Managing your reloads in this is not as difficult as some other tanks. Yet again, I harken back to World of Tanks for that. Walker Bulldog, I'm looking at you. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to it, because you can play this thing. This thing's technically an armored fighting vehicle. This is really a light tank. And I know in this game they're going to call it an armored fighting vehicle because it has the ability to designate a target, which that's something you must use. Designate the targets that you're going to light on fire, because here's the fun fact. You use high explosive armor piercing with designating a target, and you're going to do like 507, 450 every shot, and you're just going to laugh and laugh and laugh as the enemy tank disintegrates, and you just move on to your next intended target. But anyways, besides that, I think that about sums it up. Now, I want to quickly talk about one little thing. Make sure that if you go and get the Draco, you have some experience with recon vehicles, light tanks. If, for the love of God, don't be the guy that only runs MBTs and then goes and gets the Draco. If you do that, you're going to kind of not have too much fun for the first little while, and you're going to be really confused. And it's going to be a learning curve. And don't get me wrong, learning curve's not bad, especially in PvE. PvE is easy on hard mode, but even so. And in terms of upgrades for this thing, what I would say is you just got to go for the gun first, get the firepower slots, and that's it. Everything else after that, just work on it. But the reason I'm kind of lax with the upgrade path and the retrofits is because this tank is so damn good. It's not something that has a problem. Like, for instance, the Ariete, when you first start off, kind of sucks, and you kind of work up and it becomes a lot better, and you end up getting all the upgrades for it, and everything's hunky-dory. But the Draco from the start, you get up and go, and you're all set. I would even, with this tank stock, I would compete in tournaments and stuff like that and feel perfectly happy. But anyways, enough about me blabbering on and on and on. Let's go to the replay. Poink. Now, before you guys start off, I just want to say that I was running in a platoon. Was I running a platoon? Yeah, I was running a platoon with Old Scout, and we had a couple other randoms. This game went quite well for me. And this is probably, I think, the highest damage battle in it, if not maybe the second highest, somewhere in there. I hope I clicked on the right one, because if I didn't, I'm going to look like an idiot. It should be the right one. Yeah? Ghost Hunter, I don't know if that sounds right. I thought it was on a different map. Editing James, you might have to edit that out. Oh, no, this should be the right one? Yes, this is the right one. Okay, so we're here in the infamous Draco. And with Ode Scout in the T-15, which, that's another tank I gotta get. That is the Terminator on steroids. So we got M8 Thunderbolt, no armor, great gun. Armada, good armor, good gun. And a Leopard 2A7. Great gun, pretty good armor. So this is the right map. So here in Ghost Hunter, this is actually a pretty easy map to do, especially for the high tiers. You just kind of work things over one at a time. I usually sit right up here in the Draco and just kind of hang out. Now, I am going to be pausing this video occasionally to point out a few things. And one of them is going to happen right up here. Now, we see a Leopard. I have no shots on him. See a Ramka, I have no shots. Leopard, I kind of have a shot on. I'm looking around. Terminator. Now, when you're shooting a Terminator... Oh, he's in the bush. I can't do anything. I'm shooting him right around here. Now, at this angle, with AP, I can almost pen here, but it's superior Terminator. Because it's a superior, not a salvaged Terminator, remember, superior means they have better armor, better damage, all that stuff. I cannot pen his side like that, so I have to pen the turret like that. I bounced one, hit another one, hit another, and it just goes on, and on, and on. He starts firing at me, I take a little bit of damage. I pull back. Now, notice that. He shaved off a quarter of my health. Like that. I did 2,500 damage, I took 500. That will sometimes happen in the Draco. Then again, I also had no support over there, and that's kind of my fault. I'm not going to blame the team on that. So I peek up, I look down, I go, okay, lowest health target, bounce first one, get the second one, get that one. that's what happens when firing at Terminators. You gotta land at the flat spot on the front of them, on the turret. Now, what I wanted to show is I'm shooting the front of a Leopard 2A6. It's upgraded. And where I was hitting, you can hit the drivers. You can't actually hit that. But I was not really aiming for that so much. Now, looking at a Leopard 2A6. I designate him. Kind of looking around, trying to give Old Scout some help. And look, there's a Stingray too. Now, this is where these are the kind of targets, as playing as a Draco, you're supposed to be taking out. These kind of squishy targets, any sort of soft target. You gotta get them out, because they have some pretty decent firepower. I'm pretty sure at this time I was reloading. High explosive armor piercing. And I'm all set. Now, 370, 355, 378, 263. And here comes the Terminator 2 around, 212, 211, 209, 253. I'm pretty sure that's AP. So maybe it was AP before. But you guys will see when I load high explosive just what happens. Now, Terminator 2, I'm looking back at the Leopard. Now there's a Paladin. And we just kind of evaporate him. Oh, now it's high explosive. Did you hear that kind of smack when it hits? That's how you know you're flying. You're flying, lol. You're firing high explosive armor piercing. Now, let's check this out. 292, 307, 321. If you do it well, you can 505, 272, 449. Now, I want to show you where I'm hitting them. I'm actually aiming right for the engine deck. I aim exactly right for the engine deck. Whenever an enemy tank like that is backing off, you can aim and you can actually lob the shot onto the engine deck. Now, you see there's a Thunderbolt. 465, 421, 488, 504, 364. So by the way, guys, currently, we're a few minutes in, and I'm already at 11,000 damage. And we got the Armadas at 8,000, and pretty much everyone's around 3,000. And this is the Draco doing what it's supposed to do. Now you see occasionally some of those shots do bounce. It does happen, but it's worth it for the damage increase. Now you notice I designate the Thunderbolt once I'm reloading. Give them all something to shoot at. 507, every single hit. And that's max roll. So our 15.3 thousand damage. So I think you guys are kind of seeing how this thing operates. Where, yeah, I'm bouncing a few shots, penning a few. That's an upgraded Terminator. And that's where the Draco kind of has a problem. Terminators are the bane of the Draco's existence. Terminators are the biggest pain in the ass. And for some reason, this game loves to throw Terminators at you. But this thing has good enough accuracy, as you can see. And there, yeah, it's about 1 second delay. 1 second shot delay. And also Warriors. Warriors are amazingly powerful. Now, if you look what I'm doing, this is something I do want to... Right now, I'm firing high explosive, well, armor-piercing high explosive. I'm hitting right around here. Now, this is an M1A2 Abrams Lieutenant, so he's upgraded armor, upgraded health, better damage, better pen, yada yada yada. Because I know I cannot pen anywhere else, I'm shooting the side of the turret, and I was doing the same for this guy. What'll happen is if you can actually get it to drop down on the ammo stowage on top of here, or even some other spots on it, you will roll for well over 400 into the 450s. As you saw one of them. But the rest of them will hit for about 100. Typically, AP is where you'd want to be firing into that. But since I already had high explosive armor piercing loaded, I figured why not? Why the hell not? Oh, that's 416. That's the kind of roll you want to get. So now we have a Warrior, a couple Lieutenants, Abrams Lieutenants, a couple guys over there. Warrior is on cap. Now, he's not looking at me. Thank God he's not looking at me. 507, 507, 507. That's the way to do it. And now I fired something else. I'm firing at the Abrams. Bam, 480, 272. 478, 460. Now, look at this. I am firing down onto the engine deck. You can fire, and if you're looking at it, roughly similar to what I'm looking at, but I'm going to zoom in. If you could aim your cursor to be around here, it lobs over. Because remember, with this high explosive armor piercing, it's lower velocity. And that's something you have to consider. The more extreme the range, the more it's going to be kind of like plunging fire. Think about World of Warships. Think about, warships and long-range fire. So, you can actually, if side on, you wouldn't pen. But lobbing it down, you can pen it onto the engine deck. And I set him on fire, and there we go. And that's why I use Santa as the commander. Because he sets things on fire. And as you'll see, on this thing, I actually set them on fire quite often. And this poor weasel's done. 459, 452, 87, 51. Nice. So we're at 25,000 damage. And, well, we're only about halfway through this. God, love those 480 damage rolls. So we're at 26,000 damage so far. And we still got more to go. And look at how mobile this thing is, by the way. Catching a little air there. Like, the thing is properly fast. And it's relatively easy to handle. Because of the 4-wheel steering, 8-wheel drive, it doesn't spin out like a lot of vehicles. Now watch this. This is important. Old Scout is going against a 2A6. He can't really do anything on the 2A6 from the front. Now that AI is starting to use their APS, which is automatic protection system, which basically destroys ATGMs mid-flight towards them. So before, what would happen before this happened is Old Scout would just say, oh, I got quad ATGMs. I'll just keep firing them and kill them. Well, when they can start to destroy one or two of them, it's sometimes not worth it to take the time to do it. So I notice he's kind of in trouble. I go around the side and I realize, oh, there's another leopard. Now, I can't find a place to shoot him. So I say, you know what, fine, I will battle this other leopard. And this is where the Draco shines. High explosive, armor piercing, high explosive either way, right into there on the side of these leopards. 418, 464, 449, 470, 415, 433, done. And I still got shots to spare. And I'm at close to 30,000 damage. And we're still not done. That's how to really use this Draco, is you gotta learn where to shoot those high explosive armor piercing rounds, where to take advantage of targets, and to absolutely annihilate them. Same thing with that, on the side, track. Nope, nowhere to pen him. Okay. I'll pen him on the turret. There you go. 31,000 damage. And as you guys can see, this whole game I've been kind of making sure, if you look at my placement of the team, because I know we just cleared out the northern area here, I'm always usually roughly in the center, or I'm at a place where I have cover. Remember, when I was back over here near those rocks, I always had somewhere to hide behind. Never, ever, 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 and I repeat this, go out in the middle of the open, or no man's land. Do not do it. For the love of God, a warrior will laugh, a superior warrior will come out of the woodwork, and they will wreck you in 10 shots, and you will be crying. Because that's what they do. I've had it happen to me. Now, in city streets, the Draco, you have to play a little bit differently. You have to look and see which way the enemy's facing. If they're facing away from you, then you attack them. If they're facing towards you, you don't go anywhere near them. That's kind of the way you gotta fight in city streets. Now, I see Terminator to my side, and I figure, oh crap. I'll handle him later. Now, Leopard. Now, this is one of the perfect opportunities. You got the ass of a Leopard. Use it. I designate him. I miss a couple shots, trying to find it. There we go. I'm hitting that back corner. Now, go back to here. There's a Terminator. I get around beside him. Notice I'm hitting right there. That's the best way you're going to do it with armor-piercing, high explosive. High-explosive armor-piercing, whichever way you want to say it. Now we just take a little old drive this way, because we notice there's more enemies. And this is something else. You guys might notice that I'm kind of walking around in impunity, just kind of driving around, not really carefree. The game is not that difficult on hard, at higher tiers. Now, yet again, if you notice, the minute I saw his ass, I started firing. 472, 472, 464, 486, 192, you're done. And oh look, a Stingray. I wait for a side, and I absolutely lay into him. There we go. Now, I have done 39,000 damage, and I've taken 900. I have not used my rebuild kit yet. But something to keep in mind when using the Draco. Because you can see things like T14 Armadas. If you're ever below 1100 health, you got to be careful about being one-shot. And my tank just decided to disappear. And right now, I'm at the point, I want to get over 40k damage. It had been a while since I had done that. So I kind of threw caution to the wind, considering I know we only got 2 minutes left anyway on the cap. I wanted to get a lot of damage. So I went straight after the Terminator and just putting in shots. And that, my friends, is game. So, that is the Draco. It's doing around 43,000 damage. So, what I would like to say about it is very simple. It's all about your placement. Itself as a platform, in terms of the design of the tank without the gun, is not that good. It's basically the same design as the M1128 MGS at Tier 8. It's just with a different gun and different turret. Well, this one actually has a turret, the other one's just kind of a rotating platform. But it's very good if you play it right. If you pretend it has armor, you die. If you pretend it has more gun depression than it has, you die. If you decide to run around and try and spot things, odds are you will die because everything will pen you. There is no armor. So, unfortunately, you can't really be as aggressive or carefree unless you know where the tanks are going to spawn, you know what's happening, and you know you have reliable support. And I will say, this is one of the only tanks I feel at Tier 9 that even if you're with 4 incompetent players, you can still carry the team if you're good enough. But I think this is a great tank for people to learn how do you play the more advanced game mechanics, especially with armor types, and especially with learning the armor of enemy tanks. Because this forces you to do that. This forces you, when you battle an XM1A3, to say, oh, I can't pen on the front. I can maybe pen there, and if I get to the back, I can pen there, and sometimes the side, and that's it. It teaches you that. And it also teaches you the fear Terminators and Warriors, because, yeah, they wreck you. So that being that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I want to talk about with the Draco, kind of show off the damage there. And I know people in the forums are going to say, well, you know, I've done 50k, 60k. Yeah, that's nice. You know, the Draco isn't that hard to get a lot of damage in. I think lately it's harder because they've reduced the amount of enemies on some maps. And I would like to see that changed because, as you can see, myself and Old Scout did quite well on that, and we didn't really have much of a care for, you know, it was easy. And that's kind of the point. This is Tier 9 and 10 land. This should be difficult. But that's a whole nother discussion. So I'd really love to hear your comments down below, because I know some people are going to argue with me about some things with it, and I'd love to discuss it. Because in reality, I'm still open to some of the design, some of the retrofit choices, and even my commander choice. I personally really like him because of the module damage and the extra fire damage. So, but that's just because I'm firing a lot of high explosive armor piercing. If you're just firing all AP, and if you want to scout a little bit, you can always go with Sabrina. I've seen people make a case for Philip. Miramon you can't really use. And I think the only one you might be able to use would be Freyja. But that's kind of about it. But anyways, that's what I wanted to give you guys about the Draco today. Kind of a longer video. But good news is, from what I've heard through the grapevine, is tomorrow, which I believe is the 27th, or the 20, I think tomorrow's the 27th, 0.18 will be dropping. So if that's the case, and that's why I really wanted to get this video out while that replay was still available. And don't forget, guys, whenever they do a replay, yes, James, nice. Whenever they do an update, all of your old replays go out the window. So I know I probably have at least a couple gigs of replays sitting around that I wanted to use, and can't use them anymore. But alright, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and I shall catch you next time.